This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Now we're talking to Cliff Maloney, a.k.a. Mahoney. This guy's such a good guy. The first time I ever had him on my show, I mispronounced his name like 5 times, never corrected me. And since then, we've become very good friends. And he's a man who gets things done. He is the door-knocking guru. He's a political commentator and analyst in his own right, an activist. And he is pursuing what we call the Pennsylvania chase. Very early, Cliff recognized that Pennsylvania was going to be critical in assembling the 270 electoral votes that Donald Trump needs to return to the White House. And he set out to change the topography in Pennsylvania, set certain goals that many people said were impossible, but he's achieved them. And I believe that under his leadership and with some other great patriots like Scott Pressler and Charlie Kirk and others, we're on the cusp of an incredible victory in the Keystone State, speaking as a partisan. Cliff Maloney joins us now. Cliff, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Roger, always great to be with a patriot like yourself. Got a lot going on here on the ground in Pennsylvania. It's pretty wild.
I called you the other night. You were at a Steelers game. You were outside the game signing people up in the closing hours before registration closed. Shows the kind of dedication you have. Now, you said to me months ago that if we got 1/3 of the mail-in ballots coming from registered Republicans, that would be an extraordinary accomplishment. It's never happened before. The Democrats have always swamped us by enormous margins. You said, based on your calculation, we needed 1/3, and you did it. You did it, didn't you?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome when we look at the results that are coming in as we analyze the return. So, yeah, when we set out to do this, the problem was very simple. Democrats were beating us 80-20 when it comes to looking at who received the mail-in votes. And so this entire PHA's program that we launched is pretty simple. How do we get 20%, which is what Trump and other Republicans have averaged? How do we get that to 33%, right? And as of today, Roger, based on returns, I'm happy to tell you Republicans currently have 33.8% of all the mail-in votes. I mean, Harris and the entire DNC, they are panicking, right? And so we're knocking 500,000 doors across Pennsylvania. I've got 124 full-time ballot chasers, 10 Airbnbs, and the status of where we are towards knocking those 500,000 doors, as of 10 minutes ago, we've knocked 323,000. So we are on track. We are grinding over these next 10 to 11 days. We won't sleep until November 6th. And my big ask to anybody out there listening to the Roger Stone Show is simple. Come to Pennsylvania. We decide the White House. And so I mean that. You know, if folks want to get involved, you can go to phchase.com. We'll have you set up in minutes. We can put you in a hotel. We can give you some gas cards and meals. And look, if you can't come out, Roger, my ask to everybody on your show is simple. Go to phchase.com, sponsor a ballot chaser. $175 covers an entire day of chasing, and 100% of that money goes directly to the chasers' pay, their housing, and their gas. We need all hands on deck to win Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's what's so incredible about this grassroots organization, folks. There's no overhead. There are no highly compensated political consultants. This is truly grassroots. There is no George Soros writing giant checks to Cliff to take care of everything. We have to do it the old-fashioned way. So if you want to see the president return and you agree with the analysis that Cliff and I share that the Keystone State, Pennsylvania, is crucial, yeah, you can go there. Cliff will put you to work immediately. He'll put you up. He'll get you some half-decent food, and you can join a great crew of patriots. But if you don't have the time, you can't get off work, or you're just not physically up to it, or you live on the other side of the country. Doesn't matter. He needs your help. We need your help, and you can go online. Cliff, give them the address again.
Sure, it's pachase.com. PACHASE.com. Both you can go there to apply to come out and volunteer, or to sponsor a ballot chaser. We really appreciate it, Roger.
And it's not too late, folks. That's the other thing. Anyone says, well, come on, the election's only days away. No, it's actually not too late right up till the last minute, because Cliff has shifted his operation from registrations to chasing down the mail-in ballots to make sure the Republicans mail theirs in, and then he'll move into making sure people vote on Election Day. So right up until the polls close, Cliff and the boys will be out there grinding every single day. I hit him up on the text and I say, how we doing today, Cliff? And he says, we're grinding, man. We're just grinding. This is grassroots politics at its very best. And Cliff Maloney is he's no amateur. He's worked for Senator Rand Paul. He's worked for Congressman Thomas Massey, two great libertarians. Helped that great patriot Georgia Senator Colton Moore. I love that guy. He is a very solid guy. And Pennsylvania is it has become a swing state. It's kind of interesting. In the western part of the state, which was once thought to be solid Democrat country, Donald Trump has made deep inroads among working class Democrats, particularly in the counties around Pittsburgh. And it's interesting. I ran Arlen Specter's campaigns there back in the day. The people in Philadelphia, they really dislike folks in the West, and the folks in the West, they're ambivalent about Philadelphia. They really don't care. It's almost like two states. Actually, it's like three states, because the middle of the state, it's more like Alabama, and it's rural. Pennsylvania has among the largest percentage per capita of gun owners. It's not a solely urban state, and Cliff, you've made great inroads among evangelical Christians, among hunters and gun owners, bringing in people who agree with us but haven't been voting for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I think that, the nice thing is, if you look at registration, right, there's different numbers to look at. Yes, there's polling, but if you look at registration, I mean, in 2020, Trump was down nearly 700,000 when you compare registered Republicans to Democrats. That's below 300,000 now, Roger. I mean, we've cut that in half. I give Scott Presler, Charlie Kirk, so many of these groups credit because they understood that. And I also have to give Donald Trump credit, right? These folks in Pennsylvania got to experience 4 years of a Biden-Harris administration, right? And so now what's happening is they're comparing that to the 4 years under Trump, and you see people fleeing the Democrat Party, and you've got evangelicals, you've got gun owners, you've got truck drivers, you've got the Amish. These folks are all registering Republican, right? They're realizing they have to get involved. And Roger, the biggest problem that I try to solve is that in 2020, Trump lost PA by 80,000 votes, but there were 141,000 Republicans who actually requested a mail-in ballot, and they never voted. They didn't send it back. They didn't go to the polls. But I don't blame them, because in 2020, we weren't doing these types of grassroots programs, right? And so that's what the conversations at the door are right now. And look, you know the drill. If we're in a primary and it's a heated primary of a Patriot versus a Rhino, those are tough doors, because you're talking to Republicans and you're trying to convince them that this Republican is better than the other. Or in a typical general election, when you're knocking doors, you're trying to talk to swing voters. Roger, this whole ballot chase effort, it's some of the easiest and best and most optimistic doors we've ever knocked, because every door you knock on, it's a Republican. They're pro-Trump. They're going to vote Republican up and down the ballot. We're just reminding them, hey, Bill, you've got that ballot sitting there. Can I get you to send it in today? And so Democrats call this a reminder campaign. That's what it is. But you're blowing these people up, chasing every single ballot. And if you look at these returns, like I said earlier, the fact that we're at 33%, let me explain what that means compared to 2020. okay, not just in percentage, but in raw returns, raw actual votes. Republicans have returned 129,000 more ballots than we had in at this time in 2020. Democrats are down nearly 200,000. And remember, we only lost the state by 80,000. So the whole narrative from the Democrats now is, oh, well, the numbers aren't that bad because our people are going to show up on election day. Well, good luck. We know people are much more likely to vote if they have a ballot sitting on their table. And now Democrats have to get nearly 600,000 of their voters that voted by mail last time to vote only on one day, November 5th. So I feel very optimistic about where we are right now.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
A tough question for you, Cliff. In 2020, I think you and I both believe there were some irregularities, some anomalies in the Philadelphia county voting. A disagreement when the voting stopped, but the vote counting stopped, but it seemed to continue for Democrats. A number of patriots challenged the mail-in voting law in Pennsylvania. I'm not a lawyer, but my reading of the state constitution, it looks unconstitutional to me. The state constitution is very specific. That was was upheld by the middle courts. It was decided in the Common Pleas Court and then upheld in the middle courts and then ultimately struck down by what I believe is a politicized state Supreme Court. Are you concerned about Election Day shenanigans?
Yeah, I think the first thing I did before I agreed to do this, when I was asked to run this program, was to really look into, okay, well, what exactly happened in 2020? What are we putting in place to fix some of these problems and to make sure we have safeguards? So the first thing I'll say is this. Okay, the RNC under Michael Whatley and Laura Trump, night and day compared to what we had in 2020. They're working with the grassroots. We're sharing data where we can legally, and they are laser focused on making sure that only legal votes can count. I'm talking droves of attorneys, people that, I've known all these folks across PA, and they've tapped into some of the best. The team of legal minds really gives me some confidence. So that's number one. Number two, you're exactly right. In 2020, there were a lot of ballots. And here's what I actually found when I looked at it. What happened was there were all these new rules during COVID that allowed for this. And what I found was a lot of the county boards, their election boards, they would look at the rules and then they got to interpret it however they want. Now, remember, there's 67 counties in Pennsylvania, but in Philadelphia County and Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is, a lot of these mail-in ballots weren't signed. They weren't dated. Or they didn't have a secrecy envelope. And a lot of the boards just said, well, you know what? We don't want to disenfranchise voters. Well, in those areas, when it's 90 to 10, or 9 out of every 10 mail-in ballots is going to support Biden, that's where you see this huge shift in numbers. And the Republicans were just not prepared for that. But the good news is it is now law of the land in Pennsylvania that every single mail-in ballot has to be signed, it has to be dated, and they have to have the secrecy sleeve. Now, you and I know very well, Roger, that the Democrats will fight it post-election. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have this huge pile of provisional ballots, meaning the mail-in ballots that didn't pass the smell test. Democrats are going to go to war, and they are going to go to war to get every one of those votes to count. We have to make this thing too big to rig. And what I mean by that is we have to win Pennsylvania by more votes than there are provisional ballots left. And if we win by at least 2, maybe 3%, it's over because they're not going to have enough of those provisional ballots to argue in court. But I'm telling you right now, and I don't mean to be pessimistic, if this thing comes down to 50 or 100,000 votes, and they've got 200 or maybe 150,000 that are provisionals, we are going to decide Pennsylvania not through the ballot box, but through the courtroom. And so my urge to everyone, get out there in Pennsylvania, vote now. If you can't vote early for some reason, then get yourself to the polls on November 5th. But we have the numbers. We just have to get them to show up and vote for Trump.
I've been watching the collar counties outside of Philadelphia, which used to be, reliably Republican counties, Bucks and Montgomery and so on. Then they kind of trended left. But now the economic issues seem to really be hurting the Democrats in those counties. Looking at the early voting numbers in those counties, I think that's going to be a very significant development. I recently looked at some polling in those areas as well. So I think, Cliff, you've got a very, very good game plan. And again, money is the mother's milk of politics. Cliff can't do anything without the support he needs. You can go to pachase.com and you can essentially sponsor a ballot chaser, or you can get in your station wagon and head to the Keystone State, and Cliff will put you to work. I guarantee you that. But this is going to go down in history as one of the great grassroots efforts of all time. This is old-fashioned shoe leather politics. This isn't the highly mechanized the process. I mean, we don't have live callers anymore. We have these really annoying robocalls that I think everybody hangs up on when they get them. And this is Cliff's and his folks are doing it the hard way, door to door, person to person. It's hard work, and particularly in this atmosphere where, as you can imagine, some people in some neighborhoods are reticent about opening their door to a stranger due to the surge in crime based on the open borders policies of Harris and Biden. That has to make your job a little tougher, no, Cliff?
Oh, it's really, really interesting you say that because, in certain neighborhoods, there's definitely people that pause for a second. One thing I have to say on your show here, Roger, while you have me, I'm telling you right now that people should keep their eyes on the black male vote. We are seeing something in the Philly suburbs and Pittsburgh suburbs that this is not 2016, this is not 2020. Something has changed, whether it's economic policy and they're just realizing, Harris versus Trump and what it would mean for the next 4 years. But I'm just telling you that the amount of support, and we're seeing it, right? This isn't a poll. This isn't me telling you I've got a hunch, right? I'm out here chasing ballots with my teammates. I'm getting the feedback. We have a daily tracker where we see where we are with our stats and we get feedback. Black men love Donald Trump and they hate Kamala Harris. And I'm telling you, I think the shift in that number is going to be one of the reasons Trump not only wins PA, but wins the White House. And I think Democrats are going to have an identity crisis after this election. They're crumbling with black men. They're crumbling with Hispanics. They're crumbling with white men. They're crumbling with blue-collar workers of any ethnicity. The only voting bloc the Democrats have now is illegal immigrants. Right? And I don't know how you build a national coalition on that. And so that's why I'm excited about Trump winning, securing the border, us continuing to build our coalitions. But the Democrats, they're going to have to look in the mirror and figure out where they go from here because their message is not resonating with anyone.
Well, they essentially have no message. I mean, there's no positive proposal or plan for the future. I mean, first of all, Joe Biden smothers Kamala Harris in his death grip by saying, no, she was in on every decision. She was right there in the room. She's been a part of everything we've done. He knows what he's doing because he's still quite bitter about being forced out of the race by Barack Obama. And then she herself on The View, when she's asked, well, what would you do differently? I mean, how would you be different than Joe Biden? She says, well, I can't really think of any area where we'd be different. You can't run as a change agent and also run on the record of the current administration. It doesn't work. Hubert Humphrey tried it, didn't work for him. It will not work. Cliff, I think you're absolutely onto something there. These numbers among Hispanic voters, for example, our high watermark among Republicans previously was 38%. Donald Trump's going to break 50. I think he's going to be in the mid-50s, 52, 54, 56 among Hispanic voters. This is a sea change. This is historic. What Cliff Maloney and his many, many workers on the ground are doing in Pennsylvania, this is also historic, folks. So for the last time, you can help him. You can get in the fight. Don't stand on the sidelines pointing out how the folks who are in the arena could do things better. Get in the arena yourself. And if you can't get in the arena yourself, then send a contribution to the PAChase.com. PAChase.com. You know your money will be well spent. Again, there's no overhead here. There's no fancy offices. There are no big consulting fees. This is grassroots politics at its best. By the way, if anyone from the Harris campaign wants to come on the Roger Stone Show and talk about their grassroots efforts, they're welcome. I may have a few questions for them, but they're welcome to come here because, we cover politics from all sides. But Cliff Maloney, thank you for joining us today in The Roger Stone Show.